How did I make it to 45 years old, honestly? Pure luck, I would say, or maybe even a guardian angel working overtime. I grew up in the Caribbean where playtime meant here's a stick, here's a rock, or here's a ball if you're lucky, and a drain full of tadpoles or sewage. Yes, we played in the sewage. Shoes, well, that's kind of a luxury. Food, here's a snack, an apple split four ways. Milk, carnation instant milk or carnation milk with Milo or Ovaltine. Most Caribbean people would know what that is. You see, I wasn't necessarily from a poor family, and still we lived pretty poor, very frugally. Today kids have things like YouTube and video gaming, and us, all we had was peer pressure and broken arms. For instance, our favorite hobbies was climbing fences. Many other countries in the Caribbean, a lot of people shared fences with their neighbors, and kids would climb those along with different types of fruit trees like plum trees. My cousin wanted to be Superman one year because Christopher Reeves was playing Superman, and we all agreed that it was cool for him to just jump. And then we heard a vicious moan, and yeah, we were terrible cousins and friends encouraging that. But that's what life was like back in the 80s. I don't think until we hit the late 90s did things start to actually change. For me, I wonder how I'm alive because I was born with a stomach that didn't work. It was called pyloric stenosis, and a UK doctor had to build me a stomach as a newborn baby. Another thing was I fell off a second-story balcony. My grandma's exact words was, "How is she not dead?" There was a rock at the bottom of that balcony, and it was moved a day earlier by a workman. Also, back in the 80s, we didn't have the nice safety measures put in. We had metal slides. We got third-degree burns just going around and playing at the playground. You guys remember the merry-go-rounds. It was like vomit roulette. We had things like tetherball, dodgeball, we played handball on our garage doors. Pretty sure many of the kids in our neighborhood had things like concussions, and the parents just didn't know about it. These things are all like heavily regulated to this day. School courts. I remember my sister breaking her arm off the monkey bars. It was the one and only time my mom ever sued. And they start putting in those cushion padding for kids to make it a little more safer for them. But dogs, they chased us viciously down the street, and many of us were probably bit at some point by a dog, hence the reason a lot of Gen X kids, a lot of us have a healthy apprehension towards dogs. If we came home with a story saying that we were chased by a dog viciously and someone got bit, our parents would somehow blame us. Were you teasing the dog? Back then, people, like I said, didn't sue as much. People would just pay for your stitches and your doctor appointment and move on with their day. So how did I survive to 45 in an age where there was no rules, Boomers didn't really know what it was like to be parents. And I think many of us could do video after video talking about the excuses our boomer parents gave us for why they did certain things, like letting us just sit in the back of a pickup truck on the 405 freeway in California and not worrying about it, telling us to shake it off when we got cut on our knee or we needed some aid for something. I will say that summer vacations were fun. We did have slave labor though on our grandparents' farms, but hey, you got fresh chickens and really good food at the end of the day. Boomer parents were always saying things like, go play outside. Meanwhile, today's parents panic if the Wi-Fi drops off. But nobody had supervision. I remember getting a third-degree burn from an iron as a baby, as a 6-7 month old baby, because I walked past an ironing board that one of my aunts had left on and had big, huge, giant iron stain on the back of my right leg. And it faded away over the years, but it was massive. I was thinking, where were the parents? Gen X survival skills is unmatched. Pain tolerance equals survival. Many of us know what it is to just be tough. I remember building soapbox cars one year, and some of my cousins didn't stick the landing. I don't know how many of us are here. I almost became a child actor. My mom said, nope, we're having you move to Texas to live with your dad for a little bit, and it probably saved me from child actor rehab. I don't know where I would be today had I gotten into that. I almost got hit by a train once because the alert system failed and my life flashed before my eyes, and I was wondering, did my angel just save me? I fell down a waterfall and shattered my hand. All my fingers broken, and my dad turned into an Olympic swimmer like Michael Phelps along with my cousin, and they saved me at the bottom of that waterfall, and I don't know how I'm still alive. I grew up in the valley, San Fernando Valley, which was predominantly turning into a very, I would say, Chicano neighborhood, you know, a lot of cholas and a lot of crime. And I remember having to walk up and down to go to my all-girl Catholic school in my uniform, you know, short skirt, knee-high socks, the whole gamut, and constantly being offered rides. Let's just say I never took those rides, but what if I had? You know, news didn't get around the way it did back then, so we didn't find out some girl was killed and kidnapped or raped until months later. You know, I remember during just the pandemic recently in 2020, I tore my right ACL. My doctor even gasped and said, wow, you did worse than most athletes did. I've also survived a major earthquake, a major hurricane. I don't know. I think some people are just put on this earth to be here, and no matter how much Satan tries to take us out, we're just meant to be here. If you have anything you want to share, please go ahead and comment, or, you know, make your own video. But I think there are such things as guardian angels, God protecting certain people. I'm sure you Gen Xers and even some of you millennials know what I'm talking about. The 80s and 90s and, you know, just our childhood was completely different, and it makes us question, how are we still here? Have a great day. Think for yourself.